So this then is going to be the question. Let's do really, really quick planning. Okay, so what main things are we going to write about? So let's have a look. Yeah, don't be silly. Let's have a look at the what part. So this is subject theme. So get your stilts table out. We're looking for 3 points of comparison, and then once within that, we then need to find that evidence. So can you give me? Okay, give me some point of comparison to do with exposure. 1 point that answers the question. How does Wilfred Owen present conflict? Give me one way that he presents conflict. So at the moment we're just guessing. You need to have the table that Sophie's now going to hold up. Okay, which is complete, incomplete. Brilliant, that's exactly one. So where it says subject and theme, brilliant. The first two boxes, subject, first two rows, subject and theme, that's where your answers are going to come from. So we've kind of already done the planning. Give me one thing that exposure does to do with the conflict. One thing that Wilfred Owen tells us about the conflict.
The conditions in the trench.
There we go. Yep. Okay. So Dougie, this was homework. Yeah? So if you've not been able to do it, then, but it was homework for today. Yeah? So you're now 2 or 3 steps behind, so this isn't going to make a huge amount of sense. Yeah? So you need to make sure this is done so that you can write the essay. Okay? Right, can I have some evidence, please? So that's the what. That isn't enough. We need to do a little bit more to that in the writing, but these are just the notes. Right, let's get some evidence in. Any evidence about the conditions in the trenches based on a quote or a technique. So this part here, this is now moving into the how part there. Okay, so this is imagery, language, tone, structure. Will? Anything? Look at your sheet. All of your answers should be on your sheet. Anyone who's got answers on their sheet which would tell me whether you have and haven't done your homework, then I am more than happy and words cannot express my joy. Off you go. Excellent. Gabriel.
So it shows abstract feelings.
There we go. Can you give me evidence? Give me a quote.
Tonight.
Is that an abstract feeling?
I don't know, it says abstract feeling. So ends with tonight.
Are we dying?
Are we dying? Okay. No, it's not good enough to simply say that. He shows us, or he expresses an abstract feeling. He does this when he says, "Are we dying?" That's not a mic drop. That's barely a level 2. You're just stating the fact. We now need to talk about what is this? Are we dying? What type of thing is it? It's a rhetorical question. Okay. Why does he use a rhetorical question? So let's go into the why bit now. Why does he use a rhetorical question? What's the purpose behind it? Sorry? Why is that important? Look at those why questions. We're still now developing why is this now important? Why is this significant to him? Why is that meant to be effective? Why do we need to know? Rubbish. You can do better. Okay, so death surrounds him. Come on, what else? Why is he saying, are we dying? Who is he asking?
God. No one.
And why is God not answering?
Because he's left, which you can see later in the poem where it talks about God leaving him.
Go on.
It says.
God seems to be dying. No, seems. What's it?
God says.
Love of God seems dying.
Yeah, that's. Another God seems dying. Yeah.
Why is that important?
Faith as well. Because it's meant to be the
War
big
is meant
nice-
to be fighting. Go back far enough. People fought for like land.
So this isn't a holy war.
Please,
No.
can you move it up a little?
Sorry.
Religion does start all politics. All war can start with religion.
Okay, what else? Is this a question for the love of God seems dying?
No.
Chair, William. So he's moved from questions into statements now, hasn't he? What is the effect of a statement?
Ends.
Sorry?
It gives a direct fact. Yes, factual figure.
Has he given up?
No. Well, kind of.
Okay, anything else?
Um,
Let's go back up to it. Are we dying? Why doesn't he know?
because he is
Because
Think about where he is. He's not alive, but he's not dead.
It's not like
He's just.
its whole body's
I said it fast.
Gabriel?
He's just in between dying and having a good life. He's just suffering.
He's dead, but he's alive.
He's in limbo. Okay, that's fairly decent. Why? Why do we need to know this? Why is he telling us? Why has he chosen to tell us when we're all nice and cuddly at home? Gabriel?
It's to send a message to people about conditions and.
Is that just it? It's got to be more than that.
he has no one else to tell.
He's got no one else to tell. Ah.
Lonely.
Oh yeah. That one.
Go on then.
So if his poem doesn't get, so he writes the poem because there's all censorship in like about the trenches. We just become. I don't know how to say.
He wouldn't have known that his stuff wouldn't have been published later because he died.
Well, he died 3 or 4 months before the war ended.
Yeah, so he's got no concept of where his poem's going to go.
Yeah, and there's like lots of censorship in like between the trenches and Britain. So
Yeah.
so it will be hard to get the message out.
Do you think he's writing the poetry or writing this kind of truth because he feels there's a duty to be honest and truthful? Okay. Lovely. Now, this point started talking about conditions in the trenches. Do we get any information about the conditions in the Battle of Balaclava? We don't really. So what we need to make sure that we do is we need to use one of the pieces of information we have on the page here as our segue link into charge. So which one? Possibly down here. So your connection with these two poems is going to be quite organic. You need to start somewhere, but then it will gradually appear to you as your ideas, and as it's just formed here, it's quite organic, and then it will move on to something else. What would this be here? Duty to be honest and truthful. How might duty appear in charge?
It's a duty to die. It's all the words are.
That's interesting. So let's move this over.
There's the duty to die.
So what is the point that Tennyson is making in charge to do with duty?
Their duty is to do what they're told to do, not
So-
question.
So is there a fundamental purpose to obey an order?
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay, is Wilfred Owen disobeying an order?
Well, he is kind of.
Because he's...
He's trying to get the truth out while the censorship is trying to stop the truth going out.
It's too violent for them.
Because he's got questions. Is he doubting what he's doing there? Is he doubting, why am I here? Are we dying? Because I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got elements of doubt. Elements.
But
Yeah?
he's also accepted that's what he's there to do, so he's going to do it.
Even though he's
Yeah.
doubting. Yes. Okay, so.
Surely he's writing about, because he went back to war,
Yeah, he did.
so he's not really writing what he thinks. 'Cause
Well, he doesn't have to like it. He's duty bound to do it, and he's signed up and he's doing it because that's what he's...
didn't he get a choice to go back to war or not?
He could have done. Yeah, he did, but he chose to go back. So he chose to go back. He doesn't have to like going back where he's going, but he chose to go back.
But surely when you go back to something, you normally like it.
Well, no.
Not necessarily. You're duty bound. That's the whole thing about being duty bound. You don't have to like what you're doing, but you're duty bound to do it. So, when we then move over into the second poem, you need to remind yourself of the link. Keep looking over your shoulder to the link to the bit before to make sure it is an easy one. So Wilfred Owen has doubts, but he was duty bound like the 600. Okay? Okay, oops. Let's have a look at some evidence then. In charge. So in the charge side, where's our evidence? What was it?
There's got to do and die.
There's not to question why, not to reason why, there's but to do and die. Okay, so which part do you want? Do you want not to reason why, do and die? Okay, so let's do there's not, to reason why, dot, but to do and die. What have I done here?
You shortened the quote.
Because?
The
We
other
need
stuff doesn't
this
matter.
plagiarism.
No. I've shortened the quote because the other stuff isn't relevant. I don't want to write the other stuff. And also, time is ticking. And I want to get the most intense, the most relevant, the most important parts down. Okay.
Say after Wilfred Owen has doubts.
Doubts, but he was duty bound like the 600. He doesn't have to like what he's doing, but he's going to do it anyway. Okay? And maybe he wants people to understand that the soldiers don't like this, but they're still doing it anyway, which kind of adds to their element of heroism. Okay? How does this quote here, and actually it's not just those 2 lines, is it? There's 3 of them. How does that reinforce this idea of duty-bound, patriotism, honour, bravery?
This is published and commissioned by the Queen, and they're openly saying you're there to die, which is...
Okay, hang on.
like,
Hold that thought. I'm going to put that in red because we're going to kind of shift around the order, but that's absolutely fine. Okay, so commissioned by the Queen, by Queen Vic. Okay, because of the Poet Laureate, because he was Poet Laureate. Okay, the purpose is to honour the bravery of the 600. Make sense? Okay, now what I've said to Ollie is that we're rejigging the order of the what, how, why. That's absolutely fine. So long as you follow one fundamental rule, you do not start a sentence with a quote. You have to preface it. It's got to be within your writing. It can't be, there's a do and die, is a quote that Tennyson uses. That is really, really bad form. You're not going to lose marks, but you're certainly not going to gain any. So this part here, absolutely brilliant, because we've suddenly now got the reason why he's writing it. That is going to dictate the choices he's making. So we can now shift the purpose a little bit around. Ben?
You say after poet.
Laureate?
Sorry?
Laureate. Okay. So let's go back into this part here. Okay? Why has he done there's not to make reply, there's not to reason why, there's but to do and die? What is it? What did we say it was? No, no, no. What's the technique? Let's go into the quote. Let's look at the language. Nope. Don't guess. You should have written this down.
That is
Anaphora. Okay? So, what was the effect of the anaphora?
Does it reinforce the idea?
Yes. So reinforce. What do we write down?
Tennyson's idea.
Was it no? Is it just Tennyson? Because I don't think it is Tennyson. What are these soldiers? These soldiers said, "Your job is not to think. Your job is not to reason. Your job is not to question. Your job is to do it. And if you're going to die, your job's to die." What is the message that they've been given?
Reinforcing the idea of soldier.
Soldiering. Yeah? Simple soldiering. Because that's what a soldier's job is. The soldier isn't employed to think. The soldier is employed to get on with the job. The officers do the thinking bit. The soldiers do the doing bit. Okay? Okay? Does that make sense? Yeah? What about this one here? Reason why, do and die. Let's try and unpick this a little bit further. Reply, why, die. A little bit of a rhyme going on. Okay? But why is it important that as a reader, we're told this? What is Tennyson potentially wanting us to stop doing? Flipping out. My God, 600 people have gone into a battle and they've been absolutely and utterly slaughtered. That is appalling. That's outrageous. That's 600 families who've been affected. No, 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 no. Because that's their job. They're not meant to do this. They're not meant to think. They're meant to follow an order and ask, how fast? How high do you want me to jump? Okay? They're not there to question, sit round, have a cup of tea and worry about it. They are there to fight. So maybe Tennyson is saying, we need to honour these men because they've done exactly what we wanted them to do, because that is why they joined up. That is why they're fighting. Okay? So we've got to reinforce the idea of the soldiering. I think to celebrate in a slightly macabre, slightly dark, the whole deathness. Okay? Celebrate their loyalty and blind.
Ambition.
Not quite ambition. Patriotism.
He's just trying to draw attention away from the fact that it was complete embarrassment from the British Army.
Yeah. So we need to be a little bit tentative, possibly, because we don't really know, because he's really dead and it happened a long time ago, so we can't ask him. But we can be tentative to possibly draw attention away. Draw attention to the bravery, not the disaster. Okay. Anything else? Because he said someone blundered, despite mistakes being made, you've got these people who will ask you, how high do you want me to jump? Irrespective. So that is an incredible amount of obedience and discipline. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to leave it there, but we're now going to write it. Okay? This should be a relatively decent chunk of writing. Okay? You don't have to plan it in as much detail as this, but this is roughly the sorts of ideas and kind of directions to where we're going to be going when you actually do write it. So, new sheet of paper, turn over. This is out of no, 26 marks, 32 marks. So it's not points win prizes. Okay. So let's start off then. We need to start with, let's start with conditions in the trenches. So you start with your what? Okay. You need to name the poets, name drop the poets. It is not, the poem isn't doing anything. The poem is simply the vehicle that the poets choose in order to tell us the message, okay? The vehicle doesn't do anything. The vehicle is driven by the driver or the moped, or in Ollie's case, fallen off, okay? The poem is the way that the ideas are expressed. The poem doesn't actually do anything. It's just words on a page in a particular order. It is the poet who is making the choices. Okay, so how are we going to start it?
And with a quote then.
No, you don't start it with a quote. Why fluff around with the poet? We know it's Wilfred Owen, but let's hit him on the head. Wilfred Owen's poem. Wilfred Owen uses his poem exposure.
Yeah.
Yes, good. Oops, capital and capital S, exposure. To what? To
Express his views.
express. Is express the right word? Express.
Convey.
Explore.
Yes, explore. I love
Ooh. So do exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to cross things out, but you need to understand that actually, no, I don't like that idea. I'm going to choose a different one, okay? Which is absolutely fine. To explore and highlight. Do we like highlight as well?
Yeah, I really do.
Or does he illustrate?
He highlights.
Do you think he highlights? Okay, let's go with highlights. His experience in the trenches during the coldest winter on record in 1917. Because that was on that bit of context bit, wasn't it? Have we done the what bit?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, nice. Right, okay, so let's go in. Let's have a look at double check what the why was. So the howie bit. So the howie bit was abstract feelings, unsure about existence, no one there to answer the death because it's the rhetorical question. Okay, so let's talk. He finishes every stanza with kind of a question, doesn't he, or a statement. So this is the how bit. So at the end of his stanzas, not paragraphs, okay, Owen chooses to write either a rhetorical question or rhetorical string. Either a rhetorical question okay, we're still kind of like fiddling around the whats, but we're whatting into the example. Now we go into the actual nitty-gritty. He asks, I'm going to change quote here. What was the one that we used? Is it that we are dying? Yep. He You don't have to change the colour if you don't want to. He asks, is it that we are dying because... Does he know?
No, he's confused.
He's not sure. Okay. So, pause, double check what we're writing. Wilfred Owen uses his poem Exposure to explore and highlight his experiences. So this is when we're going back and then to reviewing it. So I'm just going to change colour to show you where I've made the changes. Experiences in the trenches during the coldest winter on record in 1917, full stop. At the end of his stanzas, Owen chooses to write either a rhetorical question or a rhetorical statement. He asks, is it that we are dying because he is not sure himself? Yeah? Let's keep going. What else did we say about the how part? He's not sure. So we need somehow no one there to answer. How many questions does he write? He answers it quite a few, doesn't he? Okay. When no one answers him, because there is no one left, how does he feel? Does he, because we're dealing with these abstract feelings, aren't we? He begins to question whether this is living or not. Because he says, what are we doing here? Okay. Full stop. What else? Hang on. Can we put in death surrounds him, no God? The love of God seems dying. The level of death, or the amount of death that surrounds him. Is it just him?
It's the whole, everyone.
And every other soldier. In the war. Death. So the level of death that surrounds him and every other soldier in the war implies, portrays, persuades, creates, conveys, infers, reveals, evokes, depicts, illustrates. Reveals that there may not be a God. He states, because it's a statement, quote, love of God seems dying.
What is that for reveal?
Yeah, reveals. If God is not good or kind, but cruel, Owen knows nothing will happen. And then we embed the quote.
Who's going to be on night?
Okay?